3 more weeks, 3 more weeks, 3 more weeks, 3 more. Sacrelations, odious Flanagans. Nice to see you again, indoors, on the longest bank holiday weekend of all time. During this whole pandemic season we all seem to be experiencing, it's been hard to get inspired for anything really, never mind fashion. But here we are, valiant we stand, and determined to see the day we can finally get a fire fit pic ready. Today I wanted to follow up and expand on a previous video that I did like 2 weeks ago called How to Find Your Personal Style. There I gave some examples of my own style icons, where I find inspiration, etc, etc. So I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into that subject, just to kind of take an inventory for myself of where I've been getting my influences from. And I think it might be a good little resource guide for anyone watching that's kind of stuck with fashion at the moment. Being stuck indoors all day isn't exactly motivational or inspirational. I think you could say this video is more like a what I've been doing during quarantine type video, but a little bit more geared towards fashion. Today I want to share with you some Instagram pages, fashion YouTubers, style icons I've been looking to recently. I'm also gonna throw in a mini Grails list or like a wish list, just because looking at certain pieces does give me inspiration. I will be throwing in a little wild card at the end as well, from where I've been getting inspiration. It's a little bit unorthodox, but you'll understand when I explain myself. So without further ado, let's talk about some Instagram pages I've been feeling recently. Chee! So I've been spending a lot of time on Instagram recently. So this list could go on forever, but I've picked the top 5 of each Instagram page category, if that makes sense, like influencers, fashion knowledge, meme accounts, and archive pages maybe. One Instagram influencer that I think really captures what's trending, what's hot right now, is a young man with the Instagram handle Wisdom. In my last video, Summer Predictions 2020, I mentioned that a lot of people were getting into contemporary high fashion and just taking the whole fashion community more seriously. I think this influencer Wisdom embodies the future of fashion influencing, not necessarily like, oh, everyone's gonna turn contemporary, but more like taking a subject matter of fashion, get creative with it, add your own little personal touch to it, and just all around make quality content. Now, I'm not gonna bang on all day about this page. I just wanted to say that this guy's whole aesthetic and composition with his photos is really good to see. It's refreshing, and is just someone who's setting the bar high for fashion influencers. The second page I wanted to talk about more or less represents fashion history and knowledge. Instagram handle Sam Utaro, and something about this page just really stuck with me. It's a page that touches down on some hype brands, high fashion, vintage, Americana, and more or less pop culture in general, and what relationships they have with fashion. I like this page above all simply because you get loads of information from these posts. Like, it's not just, oh, here's a cool picture that's up for interpretation. No, most of these posts have a little story behind them. You can get a little bit more knowledge of brands and their history. I think there was a really good one recently about the Stussy font, basically just giving us a brief history about it. And that's the kind of thing to expect from this page. Like, even the Instagram stories, he likes to drop that knowledge. Sammy Taro. Is that how you say it? So the next Instagram page I want to talk about is Cinder. While flicking through archive pages, a lot of them are more or less the same thing. They're mainly like ASAP Rocky and Playboy Carti shrines. But every so often you do stumble across a page that has its own aesthetic and feel to it. I'd say that Cinder as a mood board really speaks to me, just because surprisingly, there's not a lot of fashion content on there, but there's a lot of stuff you can apply to your own aesthetics and to your own personal style. There's interesting and unusual pictures. There's a little bit of nostalgia there as well. And the way that I think this applies to fashion inspiration is that you look at a subject in a slightly different way. For example, when I talk about unusual and interesting pictures, they're normally things that you can sort of identify, but it's a little bit jaded or a little bit off key, and it kind of puts your brain in this perspective where you challenge the norm. But I don't want to like deep it too much. That's just how I sort of generally think about compositions in photos. It's always good to challenge, evolve, and keep it fresh. And I think this page is perfect for doing that. So Cinder. The next page I want to talk about represents the more humorous side in fashion, the more like don't take it too seriously side of fashion. I'm talking about fashion meme pages. For this, I'm going to cherry pick Meme Saint Laurent as our representation for fashion memes. When I first stumbled across fashion memes, I didn't really know how to take it because up until then, I always thought that memes were more or less condescending, anything they make fun of, but this isn't necessarily the case when it comes to fashion memes. I think with this particular concept, you're allowed to make fun of things that you like, and it kind of proves the point that like there's no such thing as one fashion style fits all. You can poke fun at literally anything, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's corny. So in a way, I think it breaks down barriers. If someone doesn't like your outfit, that doesn't necessarily mean that whole entire aesthetic is trash. And of course, there's an added bonus of actually learning something new from fashion memes. I know, like, learning from memes. When I first found a fashion meme, I didn't really know what Rick Owens was. Found the meme, didn't really get it. And then I researched Rick Owens and the whole like community and scene around it. Went back to the meme and I was like, oh, okay, I understand that. And because you went out of your way to do that little bit of research, you've effectively educated yourself, which is really funny. So fashion meme pages, for a number of reasons, I think they're really healthy for the scene and break down barriers for people who aren't necessarily fashion savvy like myself. There is no exposure here today. And the last Instagram page I want to talk about represents vintage fashion or vintage pieces, and that is Find BK. Now, it is no secret that I am heavy into my vintage fashion. I love everything about vintage t-shirts, single stitch, old Fruit of the Loom labels. T-shirt smells a bit, that's because it's 30 years old. Find BK, I believe, is a vintage store, but they have like this massive collection of t-shirts, and seeing all of these different graphics from all these different eras is really interesting to see, and it's really inspirational for a number of reasons. One, it makes me want to go thrifting. Like, I can't wait till these restrictions are lifted so I can go back into the charity shops and low-key get those trip to the thrift videos back. Secondly, I just love the aesthetic of vintage t-shirts just because they come with in literally any shape, size. The graphic possibilities are endless. You'll be actually amazed with what kind of t-shirts exist. I'm not really doing it justice. I just like vintage fashion pages which show this kind of content, but Find BK and just other vintage Instagram pages. So for this next section, I want to talk about some fashion YouTubers that I've been binge watching recently. The first page I want to talk about is Ao from the Fashion Archive. The Fashion Archives is a really unique YouTube channel where it doesn't just touch on like how to style this, where can you buy that. It's more to do with fashion history and knowledge and more topical conversation, and it's just a really interesting channel to get hooked on. The next YouTuber I want to talk about is The Casual. Now, much like the Fashion Archives, The Casual is a channel that's heavy on discussion. They cover everything from fashion history, knowledge, industry information, and they also touch on Tokyo street culture. The Casual talk about some hype brands as well. So you see conversations about Yeezys, Off-White, Bape, and whatever is trending in Japanese streetwear culture. The next YouTuber I want to talk about that is essential for quarantine viewing is Frugal Aesthetic. I just like the idea of people poking fun at fashion. In my personal experience, people take the subject so seriously that it's a little bit jarring. So it's good just to see a perspective on fashion that completely rips it apart, makes fun of it. No fashion sect is safe. There's like a certain aesthetic to the videos which makes it look like it's a living, breathing Reddit page. So Frugal Aesthetics. The next YouTuber that I found fairly recently is Owen Hyatt. If you like fashion YouTubers like Jacob, Sanj, Avery, then Owen Hyatt is a perfect follow-on. From a style point of view, I really like Owen's aesthetics. I love the way that he puts pieces together. I love his passion for fashion. And just everything about this channel really vibes with me. There's a good energy about it, super easy to watch, and a sick style. And the last fashion YouTuber that I've been watching recently is FHTV. For those of you who don't know, this is the man behind the Pops in Instagram page. My man does a lot of fashion and pop culture memes, but the YouTube channel has a slightly different feel to it. It's not like filled to the brim with jokes, it's more focused on discussion and general fashion knowledge. Like fairly recently, FHTV did a piece on the whole minimal chrome heart situation, talks about the whole Ian Connor Siberia Hills thing, fashion replicas, really anything that can garner a discussion. And that's what I really like about this page, because this is somewhat a news outlet for me. honestly, like, I'm finding out things that I completely was unaware of, but here it is in video essays that you can easily digest and be a part of the conversation as well. So FHTV. So the next thing I want to talk about are style icons and grails. This isn't something that I've been deeply into, but it is something that I've been kind of researching on and off. So style icons, I've been looking into Shia LaBeouf once more, the whole normcore situation. I know it's a little bit of a meme at this point, but Jonah Hill is a low-key accidental style icon. The late Robin Williams, when you look back on his fits, Robin Williams was a low-key genres enthusiast. I also think with the rise of vintage and Americana type fashion, Kurt Cobain is going to be thrown out there as one of the Americana OG names. Even though you could argue the fact that Kurt Cobain is an unintentional style icon, like the whole aesthetic of Kurt Cobain was he didn't really care what he was wearing and that was the whole point, which in itself is ironic because that's a whole aesthetic now and something to aspire to. And lastly, just general 90s fashion, like a couple of names to pick out of a hat would be young Johnny Depp and Leonardo DiCaprio. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, let's all bring it back to 1995, but I just like certain aspects of their style, like the hair for a start. The whole scene in the 90s, I would say, was more like loose on its fashion rules. I see a lot of personality in the styles when it comes to 90s vintage, and those were my style icon. Now, when it comes to grails, I'm just gonna give you a short list of things that I've seen and thought, oh yeah, actually, I want some of that. The first one is super bait, like everyone probably knows about this already, but the Issey Miyake parachute autumn winter jacket from 1996. You saw Robin Williams wear this jacket. I'm also really feeling the Capital Skeleton t-shirt. This might be a little bit of a fad at the moment, like what Supreme box logos were a few years ago, but this is something that I'm really feeling at the moment. I've also got a few long-standing grails. These are like items of clothing that I've wanted for a while, more because I want them as a collector's item rather than like, oh, I'm gonna wear these every day. The Blue Liquid Lithuania 1992 t-shirt, that's got like the sickest tie-dye of all time and the graphic on the front, say no more. The Nike Alpha 1992 shoes. I don't think Nike is ever going to release these just because I'm pretty sure I am the only person talking about them. And the last grail is a little bit out of left field just because it's so expensive. It's like £50,000 or something like that, but the Cartier Crash watch. Now, obviously, the first thing when you think of when you look at this watch is the persistence of memory. It looks like it's been ripped straight out of that painting and straight onto a strap. I mean, it's £50,000 as well, so cha-ching, how much is your outfit worth? The Cartier Crash watch. If you've made it this far into the video, like, congratulations, because I feel like I've been waffling for so long. But let's talk about the wild card. So the one thing that I wouldn't ever have expected to give me fashion inspiration is the new Animal Crossing's New Horizon game. I could probably do an entire video on this subject, and if you actually want that, please let me know in the comment section down below because I'll be very excited to do this. It's a cult classic game that got a massive following during this whole like COVID-19 pandemic. I think a lot of people were looking for escapism, and like this was the perfect game for that. You have your own island, you dress your own characters, blah 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 blah. Long story short, there's a feature in the game where you can make your own clothes, and this has birthed an entirely new community in the fashion world. Animal Crossing fashion content. Now, these communities have splintered off onto Reddit and Instagram. They've been getting a lot of attention from fashion publications, and all because you can custom design your own clothing. Now, it's nothing too mad, it's all done by pixel art, but people have been making their own versions of like Supreme box logos, Capital Skeleton t-shirts, Louis Vuitton pieces. Just literally imagine having any piece you've ever wanted on your own Animal Crossing character, which you're projecting yourself onto anyway. Even the game's default clothes have enough merit to give fashion inspiration. Like, I'm finding pieces on there that I would never normally think of, trying some things out, and boom, I wouldn't mind wearing that. Maybe I could implement that in my own style in real life. Enough said. Animal Crossing is my wild card for fashion inspiration. And that was everything I have to show you regarding fashion inspiration. I hope you liked today's video. There wasn't really a point to it. It was more or less just a what I've been getting up to type video. Also, let me know in the comment section down below, how have you been keeping inspired during this whole COVID season? What Instagram pages have you been feeling? What YouTubers have you been binge watching? Where have you been finding that inspiration to like dress yourself up in the morning? Or even if you haven't, like, let me know. So if you like this video, then please give it a like. If you dislike this video, then give it a dislike. If you want to support me and the channel, then press that little subscribe button and that bell notification if you want to get notified when I upload a new video sometimes, because YouTube doesn't always do that. Thank you for watching my video. You guys are the best. Bye.